Episode 159 of The Actors Room highlights The Last Temptation of Christ, done in 1988, directed by Martin Scorcese. It stars Willem Dafoe as Jesus, Barbara Hershey as Mary Magdalene, and Harvey Keitel as Judas. This was, without a doubt, one of the most controversial films of 1988 and possibly the decade. It's about Jesus and his struggles as a man, a different look into what Jesus could have been. It's an interesting topic, and we're going to do the best we can in the actors' room talking about that subject. So, sit back, relax. I hope you enjoy this edition of the Actors Room. My name is Jeff Tarowski, and here we go. There have been many films done about the life and times of Jesus Christ. And I couldn't even tell you how many films, miniseries have been done about this wonderful man. And all of them, except for this film, portrayed Jesus as godly, saintly, perfect, a perfect human being. But in this film, which makes it so different and controversial, it tells a story of Jesus more like you and me. Human. And when you really think about it, if Jesus walked the earth, he was human. When I saw this film for the very first time in 1997, I remember the year, I was taken aback because I was raised Catholic since I was like 2. Well, since I was born, really. My dad was Catholic and my mom became Catholic. We went to church every week. We didn't miss a week. Not one weekend. And of course, I went to Catholic school, which means I went to church a lot. And Jesus and Mary and Joseph and all the saints are held in a regard that is almost untouchable. And seeing Jesus in this film as a human being with the same struggle about who they are, the fear, all that temptation was shown for the very first time. And it made me realize that thought, that idea being portrayed here was possible, isn't it? I mean, who's to say that Jesus didn't have temptation? Because of course he did if he was a human being. I wanted to set that up, and we may talk more about that down the line. Because I have to say, of all the Jesus movies I've seen, and I've seen most, this time of year, Easter, I have an urge to watch Jesus films, documentaries, and the like. It's just in me. I seek it out. It's almost like I have to fulfill that in me. And although there is a great amount of Catholics, Christians, or anyone that respects Jesus the way he should be, will frown upon this movie, I see it as refreshing. It's art. It's a film. It's an idea put to the audiences. Martin Scorcese wanted to do this film for a very long time. And his parents told him, Marty, don't do it. You know this is a bad idea. But Marty felt there are so many Jesus depictions. This one needs to be told. Because I'd like to point this out. Anyone that's practiced Catholicism, Christianity, we all know about Jesus' birth, when he was a child. And then it's sort of forgotten or not mentioned at all in the Bible about Christ's teenage years up until when he was in his late 20s, early 30s. There's lost time there. What happened there? I always found that so fascinating because it's not documented at all. But he was alive during that time. Was he a carpenter? Because his dad was a carpenter. Chances are that's what he was doing. What was he going through as a teenager? Because you and I both know, we all know that when you're a teenager, your body goes through all these changes. And you have thought, new thought, your thought. And divine as Jesus was, he was still able to feel what we feel. Experience hurt, laughter, pain, excitement within him. And everything that we feel, I would say it's safe to say that Jesus, he felt that too. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say one of the great things about this film, whether you like it or not, is that chance of identifying more with Christ because we were human together. And I think that's something that we don't have that connection with in other films. When we have that connection, there's more of a connection. Whether it's good or bad, you can feel a connection, more of a human connection with Jesus in this film because he seems more real. And I hate to say it, but isn't that maybe the point? And I think that, there might be people out there who are very religious that understand what I'm saying. Is it so wrong to see Jesus in that way? Or is it comforting knowing that he had all of this stuff inside and being how wonderful he was, he didn't give in. But in this film, he gives in. That's the touchy part. Sorry. Okay, so now that I kind of got that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the actors in this film. Willem Dafoe portraying Jesus. Man, I gotta tell you, he did a wonderful job. I find that there are certain roles that an actor has throughout their entire career, right? And there's always that one or two roles that stick out. Whether they feel they did a good job or not. And I'm pretty sure that this role for Dafoe sticks out. And any actor that takes on Jesus is taking on one hell of a responsibility. And because I'm doing a Jesus show, boy, I hope I don't curse at all. And before we go any further, I always feel so bad when I get upset and I say, Jesus Christ. And I say it often. And every time I say it, I feel bad right away. It's just sort of built into us, or it is to me. When you get frustrated and you're like, Jesus Christ, and it's just, the blasphemy, and I can feel like the eyes of the Lord, and you gotta, and the priests I've known, and they're just gazing down at me, burning holes through my soul. How dare I? But Jesus is all around. Whether you believe him or not, or, you're not religious at all. I mean, you think about it, Christmas, Easter, a lot of holidays are based around Christ. I mean, you can't deny it. Willem Dafoe, getting back on Dafoe, portraying Christ. Nails it. You see his hurt and frustration in the film. In the very beginning, they show Christ. He's a carpenter. He's building crosses. I'm fascinated right away. He's building crosses. Eventually be his demise. And he's building them. Harvey Keitel plays Judas. And I've mentioned in my show many times, Harvey Keitel comes up because I do a lot of Scorcese films, and I've just realized that. I must really love Scorcese. I'm very critical of Mr. Keitel. I think he's good and bad. This one, he shines. This is one of those performances for Keitel I have high regard for. He nails it. All the performances in this movie, I think, were pretty spot on. There was only one performance I was iffy about, and that was Bowie. Bowie was mostly a performer and singer, as you know, and he did act for sure. But I didn't buy Bowie, but everybody else I did. Harvey Keitel for sure. He plays Judas. They have some great scenes together, him and Dafoe. One of the most memorable scenes, a very short, sort of under the radar scene, is in the beginning. And Judas is coming to kill Jesus. And Judas realizes that Jesus might be the Messiah. So he has Jesus sort of come with him to fight the Romans and so on. And there's a scene between Keitel and Dafoe. Judas brings up, I don't like when you preach saying to turn the other cheek. That was one of the very big messages that Jesus Christ professed and taught, was you should be the bigger person. When someone wrongs you, okay, you shouldn't rebel and lash out. You should be calm, accept it. Don't be that guy. I was that guy the other day, cussing somebody out, cutting me off, all that stuff. You should turn the other cheek, which means hit me again. And Judas explains, I didn't like that. I didn't like that you didn't stick up for yourself, or you're telling people. If somebody knocks you down, right, get up and say you're sorry? No, I don't think so. And that's a tough one. Is that not one of the toughest ones? Forgiveness. Forgiving is it seems easy, but it's not. It's a difficult one to master. In turning the other cheek, and Judas bringing that up, he said, I'm not a dog. I'm going to stick up for myself. I don't like when you said that. And as we go forward in describing this movie, describing the character of Jesus portrayed the way it is in this film, because you get to see a lot of different aspects of Christ, I think it hits home more when Jesus professes that the answer is love. And although Jesus is full of fear, lust, envy, all that stuff, confusion, he's always full of love. So I like that message because no matter where you are in your life or what holds you back, we're all full of fear in one way or another. We all have fear. It's a cloud over us. But if you're sorry and you forgive, like they said in the film, and you show love, that's the answer. And that is really put to as the main focus of Jesus's teachings. It all comes down to love. Love thy neighbor. They show Jesus saving Mary Magdalene. And oh boy, the prostitute. And I say oh boy, because in the film, Jesus lusts for Mary. She's a man. And we all know, men and women out there that might be listening to this show, we all know how men are. We can't help it. That's just the way we are. And the first time I saw this, it took me, because there are other depictions of Christ, and you always wondered, was there something, what is that between Jesus and Mary Magdalene? And in this film, it's pretty much put in your face. Yeah, there was something there. And you see it and you go, but okay, I have thoughts that there might, but when you actually see it in the film, you go, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I think that's why this was so controversial. I think that's the number one reason why. It has to be. Seeing Jesus lay with a woman, it's just blows your mind. Any Catholic would be like, but that didn't happen. No way. Mary Magdalene was played by Barbara Hershey, and she does a great job. I'm a big fan of Barbara Hershey. I think she hits it out of the park. Every time I've seen her, never seen a bad performance out of her. Never. She actually brought the idea of this film to Marty years before. They had worked together on a film years before this. So she was instrumental in planting this into Marty's ear. The movie does touch on all of the main stories regarding Jesus with his ministry, traveling around, acquiring his disciples, preaching, raising people from the dead, curing people, performing miracles, all of those things. Scorcese made a point to really highlight when Jesus goes into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights and is tempted by the devil, and he resists the devil. But when he returns, he needs to be nursed back to health. And the two women that are helping him, bring him back to good health, they tell him that he should marry and have children. And I found that interesting, that you have this outside source, people he knows, trusts, telling him these things. Judas saying, I didn't like that you turn the other cheek. And then you have these two women telling him, Jesus, you should settle down, get married, have kids, like everybody else. But that's not in him, right? But he continues on with the word of God, spreading his word. And when he comes up to the temple where they're selling in front of God's house, and you have that scene where Jesus flips over tables and shows his anger. Even in the other Christ films, you see this scene where, and that was always my favorite part watching Jesus films, was watching him flip over tables and get angry. So I will reiterate once again, seeing Jesus is more human. I can identify with, and I like that. There's something about that. I'm trying to think of a better word than identify, but just appreciate more that although he's saintly, godly, above, there was always that underlying human aspect of Jesus that's there. And you see it and you go, okay, I can understand why he's getting pissed. Jesus got pissed? No, yeah, he did. Even in the gospel, he was pissed. So they showed a little bit of that. Another part that you see that human aspect of Christ is, of course, when he knows that he needs to die on the cross. That's just his path, the sacrificial lamb. And he's crying and praying all night. He has his disciples and he asks them, stay up with me. And they've all fall asleep. And he continues to cry and pray and beg for God to let this pass him by. He spends all night trying to convince God to not let this happen. Why are you doing this? Does this need to be done? And that shows like he's scared. Definitely. And he should be. And I like that too. Because we go through that. Now, of course, we're not dying on the cross, but you know what I mean. We can identify with that. But this is when things get interesting in the film. Jesus is about to be crucified. And as he's going to die, an angel comes down, tells him, yes, you are the Son of God, but you're not the Messiah. You can come down off that cross, be a man, do what you have to do, live a good life. You done your job. Do you want to come down? He's like, yeah, sure, I'll come down. Of course, I embellish. This is my show. That's the actor's room. I try to have a little entertainment in my show. Because, I mean, we just talked, religious stuff the whole time and it got boring, yeah. You got to make it a little fun, right? Of course he's going to come down. God said I can come down. Can I come down? Okay, I'm going to come down now. And he does. And that's where you see all the things that make this film controversial. He gets married. He has sex. He has kids. He goes through everything that, a dad would. And, a husband and all that stuff. Right? And he's growing old. He's an old man. And he's walking around. And he sees this guy preaching. Right? Talking about this Jesus Christ character and how he went through all this stuff and he preached and he performed miracles and he was crucified, put on a cross, and when he died, he rose again in 3 days and all this wonderful thing. And Jesus is like, whoa, buddy. Whoa. What are you saying? You're lying. Don't do that. And this prophet, right? And he's played by Harry Dean Stanton. And I'm going to look, and I love Harry Dean Stanton. I'm going to look up what that character's name was. Saul/Paul of Tarsus. And he's telling the Christ story, the story that it should be. And Jesus said, no, you don't. Don't do that. That never happened. That's wrong. How dare you tell that story? I'm Jesus. That's me. And I'm standing right here talking to you. I'm alive. I have kids. I'm married. All this stuff. Don't be walking around telling people this lie. Never happened. And the way Saul looks at Jesus and studies him for a moment, he goes, you know what? I'm glad I met you. It kind of sends chills down my spine. Harry Dean Stanton, well done. He's like, I'm glad I met you. My story inspires people. And I will continue to go on and tell this story, whether it's true or not. And he just walks away. So Jesus eventually becomes older, really old, and near the end of the film, he has all his disciples come to see him one last time. And Judas comes up to him and says, you should be ashamed of yourself. And Jesus is like, what? What are you talking about? Judas explains that the angel that came down and told him, you can come down off that cross, you've done your job, come on down, was actually Satan. And he gave in to the temptation. Jesus is so distraught. By gosh, I almost said God. By God, what have I done? I'm supposed to be the Messiah. And literally crawls on his hands and knees, begging God to forgive him. I want to be the Messiah. That's my calling. I'm sorry. Forgive me. And that's when it ends. And isn't that what it's all about, folks? That's why I like this movie so much. You mess up. Jesus, in this, depiction of Christ, he messes up like any human would, right? We mess up all the time. How many times have we said, that's the last time I'm going to do that? Right? You're like, gosh, I'm a moron. I'm never doing that again. I promise. God or whoever, higher power, whoever you're talking to, I'm done. That's it. And then what? 5 days later, you do it again. What is this with us? We're so weak. Most of us anyway. Those of you who are so strong and you go, I'll never do that again, and you don't, God bless you. You're above us all. But most of us, we fuck up again, and then we fuck up 3, 4, 5, 100 more times. Because that's just who we are. It's almost like we can't help ourselves. And that's why I wanted to talk about this film during this season here in Easter. It's a film I think about often because we are human. We fall on our face. But you know what? We learn something from it. We get up, don't we? And we try harder. It makes us better people because we know, I think that's our greatest asset, right? We know how weak we are, but we're trying so hard to be better with every passing day. And that's why I look at this film and I go, yes, right? Even Jesus messed up and he was sorry. Then, and the message for me is that God's so great, right, that he forgave his son. Of course he did. He's like, Jesus, it's okay. It's okay, buddy. You messed up, right? It's okay. You could be the Messiah again. You could do this. Save the world. And that is the last temptation of Christ. And if there's any other actors, like I mentioned David Bowie, he plays Pontius Pilate. I'm not saying he did a horrible job. I'm not. I don't think Bowie's a bad actor. I don't think he's a great actor. I just think he's an actor. He did the only one that of the actors concerned that didn't hit it out of the park. That's all I'm saying. Oh yes, Barry Miller. He plays Jeroboam, and Barry Miller's an actor that, oh man, he just passed away actually. He was in Saturday Night Fever. He was in Peggy Sue Got Married. I'm just mentioning a few films. Very talented. He kind of got away from acting. He was doing his own thing. I always wished he would have done more stuff because he's just great. He's just one of those actors, artists, people. It looks so natural. Just the words just came out of it. And the way they came out, it's like he nailed every line he ever did, ever. That's hard to do. So he's in this, Barry Miller, and I wanted to mention him because he did pass not that long ago. A wonderful, wonderful man. And I think that's all of the performances I would like to point out in this controversial but enlightening, eye-opening film. if you give it that time. If you've never seen The Last Temptation of Christ, it's unlike any other Jesus movie you'll ever see. Thank you for listening to this edition of the Actors Room. And the next thing we're going to do before we go are mention some tidbits about the film. I like to do this, you know that. Marty did not want the actors smoking on set. Most of them smoked. He says there was something seriously wrong if he looked over between takes and saw Willem Dafoe as Jesus puffing on a cigarette. I know. And I always thought, back in the day, when Jesus was alive, back then, they could party. People don't like to think about that, but they did. They drank a lot of wine. I think they smoked some pretty good shit back then. If you're telling me Jesus never did any of that stuff, I think he did. But there was no way Marty was going to have that visual, right? Of Jesus Christ smoking a cigarette. No, so whoa, that's not right. And I'm trying to think in the Middle East. Oh gosh, what are they? The hookahs. I would see him when I lived in New York City. I lived in Queens, and there was a street called Steinway, very close to where I was. It was a long street and went across the city. There was a section, a Middle Eastern section, and they would have these little shops, and you pass. There'd be shoes outside the store. They had to take off their shoes before they went in, and they'd all be around a table and smoking the hookahs together. Seriously, that's all like these little shops. I think it was just a place they would get together and smoke. Hookahs, right? I'll look this up later. I'm not doing it during my show. If I mess up during my show, that's my show. They're probably not hookahs. They're probably something else, and I messed it up. But it was this thing, and it had tubes, and they sucked on, blew them out. They were smoking. You tell me they didn't do that back then? You know they did. I'm sure that's a tradition, doing that. They get together, and they converse. It's a social thing. Must be noted that Scorcese did receive death threats, by the way. Unbelievable. It's quite incredible to me. These are supposed to be religious people making threats. It's a film, folks. I don't understand this whole concept of religious sects that are violent. Doesn't that defeat the whole purpose? Well, it does for Jesus, because Jesus was all about peace and love. Isn't that what it's supposed to be all about, folks? 10 Commandments, that makes the most sense, of course, is thou shalt not kill. Of all of them, right? I think that's the one that we can all agree on. Thou shalt not kill. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of them. Thou shalt not commit adultery. It's wrong, right? But some marriages are open, right? Thou shalt, not lie. It's okay. Most of us lie several times a day. Thou shalt not bear false witness, and, all this stuff. But thou shalt not kill. And there they are, threatening. Poor Marty. Just made a movie. He's religious. He just wanted to do an artsy film. Does that make sense, right? This is my show. If you don't like it, you don't have to listen. But as I'm sitting here in my little room, in my house, talking about a Martin Scorsese film done in 1988 about the life and times and struggles of Jesus, I have to talk about more interesting tidbit facts for the audience to enjoy. Let's continue. Because this wasn't a popular film, especially in the eyes of the production studio. The budget was small, and Marty had to do the film in a certain amount of days, which means there were several scenes done improv and on the run, he says, just to come in under budget. And he also promised the studios that after this one, he was going to do a commercial film, which became the one with De Niro, Cape Fear. Marty had his eye on an actor to play Jesus first, before Dafoe, and that was Aidan Quinn. Interesting. I like Dafoe. And before we end this episode, because I'm looking at any other tidbits, I don't think so. I mean, let's talk about Dafoe before we end the show. Because I really liked his performance in Platoon. And there are many other characters that he portrays that stick out. I remember, like American Psycho. But he's done a lot of work. And I found that doing a bit of research on Mr. Dafoe, he's extremely creative. They're all artists, you want to say. Any actor, you could say they're an artist. And that's true. But there are some actors that go above and beyond the art form. They go a little too far out there sometimes, I think. Dafoe is one of those. It works for him. I get it. But I found that he will dive into a lot of risky, artsy venues. Venues that I think a lot of other artists wouldn't touch. Let's just put it that way. And although, I don't know, I don't consider myself, maybe I do, a restricted artist. I probably am. I admire someone like a Dafoe who's able to do that. He's not afraid to go that extra mile. And although his venues are risky and different, odd, you do research yourself. I can't explain it. He just is that type of person/artist. He's so, we're going to say this. He's brave. He's bravely artsy. That's all I'm going to say. And he associates with people I don't like. Okay. Artists. Painters, expressionists, all that stuff. Yeah. Some of them creep me out. Okay. I'm not going to lie to you. They do. Their art's way too weird. I'm not into that weird art. Dafoe is. He loves it. Good for you. Hey, if it makes your performance in the next movie that much better, as long as you're not doing anything illegal or, that's when things get messy for me. If I ever found out he was doing illegal shit, okay. But that's not what I'm seeing. That's not what I'm saying. He's not afraid. And his portrayal of Jesus goes down is one of the best. I will mention that another Jesus film I will watch, and it was a mini-series done a while back. I think 79? I'm not going to say a year. But Jesus of Nazareth, William Powell played Jesus, Olivier's in it. I mean, there's great actors. It was one hell of a show. If you've never seen Jesus of Nazareth, that's another one I recommend very highly. Okay, I'm going to end this show. This one was a weird show. I wanted to just talk about the film. I wanted to just talk about what it meant to me and my interpretation of it. I grew up in a religious household. Okay, so my perspective is going to be a little different if you were raised Jewish. I mean, you were raised in a religious house, just like me, or Protestant, right? I mean, whatever. And even if you were brought up in a house that had no religion, but this interests you, or you have no interest at all, you just enjoy a good film. This is a good film. It's a Scorcese film. Most of his work is great. Thank you for listening. I hope all of you have a great day. This was episode 159 of The Actors Room. Always support the show. Go on to iTunes. Go on to YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Give a review. Do all that you can to help the show. I need it. Right now, we're very stagnant. My numbers, pretty stagnant. I think it was because I took 2024, I pretty much took completely off. That hurt the show, I'm not going to lie. So I'm trying to get my legs back, doing a show more often. It's happening. The juices are flowing. I'm wanting to do more shows now, so please support, tell friends, family, or you don't have to. Just keep it to you. Hopefully other people will listen. So, thanks once again. Always have art be a part of your life. Watch that movie tonight. Enjoy it. And for me, it's right before Easter. So have a nice Easter. Enjoy your family. Right? Talk about all the good things. A little bit of bad. We all got to talk about our health, right? Always have to bring that up. What's going on health-wise? Now that we're getting older, I'm 50. Got to talk about that stuff. Okay, I'm not 50 yet. Getting there. But hopefully have a great night. Enjoy that film. Enjoy that show you're watching. Enjoy it. Get something out of it. Or just relax and enjoy the evening. Thank you once again. May God bless you. Have a good one.